Hi, everybody. I'm Angela MacLeod, and I'm a KI facilitator, and I'm here with fellow KI facilitator Michael Lucas, and we're going to talk about my nervous system resilience course. Michael was in my course when I ran it in April, and I was really impressed with, he already had a lot of knowledge about the nervous system and nervous system regulation. And he really participated in a really nice way and contributed quite a bit to the course. And so I invited him to just come here and talk with me a little bit about what this course is about and how it can be helpful in doing Kiloby inquiries, both just for your own self-facilitation and also facilitating clients and other people. So while this course starts out initially just giving a basic understanding of how our nervous system works and some of the new neuroscience, the polyvagal theory, most of the course emphasizes learning about our nervous systems through actually practicing, being aware of our nervous system states, coming to identify when we're dysregulated, when our nervous system is really revved up and we feel stressed or overwhelmed, or on the other end of the spectrum, when our nervous system is more in a shutdown mode and we feel disconnected, we don't know what we feel, even to the point of maybe dissociation. So I think it's really interesting to learn about the nervous system and use the technical terms, but I also like to translate that into everyday language that most people can understand. And so that's a really important part of how I designed this course. So we do start with that basic technical understanding of the nervous system, but then we use layperson's terms so that if you aren't really interested in the science part, you'll still be able to relate to what the felt sense is of the nervous system when it's dysregulated and when it's more in that present, grounded, calm mode. So how this is valuable in relation to doing Kiloby inquiries is that when we're in an extreme dysregulated nervous system state, it's really difficult to be present, to look from awareness, and to do deep inquiry. That's really the essence of why I'm bringing this nervous system work to KI. And so Michael and I are going to talk a little bit more about how we both have used this understanding of the nervous system and some techniques for shifting the nervous system so that we can be more present and aware, and so that we can actually turn towards the things that trigger us. So we all know that when we're doing KI work, we use tools like reverse inquiry and utility inquiry and mining, and actually induce triggering so that we can really face that stuff that's stuck in our system. We can face those difficult emotions that we're feeling that are kind of stuck in our bodies, and we can confront our beliefs, which a lot of that is not comfortable. But when we have a nervous system container, or our foundation is more in that grounded circuitry, we are able to more deeply engage with some of that more difficult stuff. It's kind of a paradox. So I'll pause there and see if Michael, would you like to chime in on anything, any way that you have used this education about the nervous system in your life or in doing Kiloby inquiries?
Sure, thanks, Angela. Yeah, well, for me personally, over the last few years, I've really studied polyvagal theory and the nervous system, both intellectually and experientially, in my life. I've found having the understanding that the nervous system is actually the foundation of our lived experience, and everything is built from that point upwards. And the other modalities in some other therapies are built from, as the nervous system being the foundation, are built up on top of that. Our ability to form attachment as a child is built from how our capacity and our nervous system to be regulated. So that led me to sort of playing around a little bit in my own personal life, and using a few different either techniques, or a big one for me is probably using the breath. So having the fundamental understanding of the nervous system, especially the polyvagal theory, and then from that using certain techniques. For me, it's breathing the majority of the time, depending on what state I'm in. Breathing will always, majority of the time, is actually activating of the ventral vagus state, which is when we feel like, connected, we feel restoration and stuff like that. We're socially engaged. We're using our social engagement system of our face. We're using our prosody of our voice in certain ways as well. And I find it very helpful for, it's not really about staying calm all our life. It's about when we dysregulate for whatever purpose, to feel safe, or fight or flight, or freeze, or shut down, or dorsal, whatever we want to do, which we don't have a control over. It's just about knowing how to get ourselves back to safe, I'm okay. Because it's from that point there that, our rationality comes back and stuff like that. Because when we dysregulate and we're in a survival, adaptive survival response, we don't actually have our prefrontal cortex or rational thinking with us when we're in that state, whether it's when we're activated in it, or if we're stuck in it as well. And for me personally, that feels like, in my experience, not really having clarity thinking, because I was an addict for 15, sort of 20 years. So I was always in a hyper arousal state. So, always watching out for, something wrong to happen or something like that. So I was always in that hyped up state. And what that felt like at the time, and what I learned as I learned this work, was not really having any rational thinking on board, not really, not making good decisions, reacting out of, that survival response. It's quite, it's just a hectic way of living, I guess. So then when I sort of, done the killer bee inquiries and stuff like that, I found how the importance of understanding the nervous system as well. It blends very nicely with the KI work. Where I've found it probably to be the most helpful is when we're working with a client at the start and we're going through the rest process. Whether you're resting for 5 or 10 minutes, that lead in or something, and you can still tell whether that client's dysregulated. I find it being very helpful at that stage then, because that's usually the point for me, whether I stay with more rest or I start asking them questions about how they're feeling. Is there a safe place you can feel at the moment? So you can either start cultivating a resource, rather than, if I didn't have that understanding of that nervous system, which Angela's course, really helps you understand, then I would probably at times try and actually go into doing the different inquiries and techniques with the killer bee inquiries without actually being attuned enough to see that their nervous system is actually dysregulated. So this is where we can get, they might be popping out, or they might be dissociating, or whatever. And what I really love about that understanding of the nervous system that Angela's course helps deliver is noticing the slightest cues of what a dysregulated nervous system looks like, whether it's in their eyes, whether it's in their face, or it's in their prosody, like the voice that they're talking. They're talking fast, or they're talking really slow, they're talking monotone. Is their face really stiff? You're picking up on where are they locked in maybe a freeze response or something like that. And that, for me, has helped me be more attuned to where to lead that, obviously letting the client lead, but understanding, having an intention of, all right, where they're going and what they may need at that time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. I was realizing too that in my experience working with clients doing KI, there's really not very many times when I've had to, use some nervous system technique in the midst of a session. that it's often more in the beginning where I'm working in the discovery phase, or when I'm setting contacts with the client, where I'm actually asking them, how they feel or what's going on for them. And for me, some of the cues that we might need to do a little bit of grounding work with the nervous system before we get into the KI session is if they say, I'm anxious all the time, or I feel overwhelmed a lot. So I listen for some key words. I feel disconnected. I don't know what I feel. It's uncomfortable for me to feel into my body. Those kind of things. That it's really more when they're on those extreme edges of where their nervous system is at, that I want to sort of help guide them and their nervous system so that they can be more present. And what I like to also emphasize with this work is, you mentioned it too, it's not about only staying calm. The thing is our nervous system is very dynamic, and just even within one day, the nervous system shifts and gets triggered in and out of what you would call dysregulation. I'm not even sure that I like that word dysregulation,
Mm.
because really I think of our nervous system as this very dynamic, ever-changing, fluid part of our system. It's when it gets stuck in one of the extreme phases of dysregulation that it gets really difficult to go into rest or to even go into deep inquiry. And so there's only been a few times really in a session where I needed to really pause with the client and do some deep breathing work or do some body movement to help them, become more present. But it's having that understanding and that attunement that I think is really useful with doing Kilby inquiry. I'd like to turn a little bit more towards my course now, and just mention a few things about it. Like I said earlier, um, there's so much information right now, and this field of neuroscience is really huge and booming. And there's a lot of courses you can take, and a lot of free stuff online, that gives you an intellectual understanding. What I wanted to do with this course was to spend quite a bit of time doing embodied practices that help the nervous system shift, because having an intellectual understanding is not enough to really work with the nervous system itself. And so the course has to do a lot to do with exercises and practices that we do in the class. I have charts. I also really like to work with different ways of learning. So there's a video with an explanation that goes into the science. Then I also have a manual. So I have a lot of the course is written out. And then I have charts so that they're handy for you to just look at, that explain what does it feel like when the nervous system is in the fight or flight mode, and what do you actually experience when the nervous system is in the shutdown mode, and what does it feel like, how do you experience being in that calm centered circuitry. But I have it laid out in a chart. Then I have worksheets as well to help you um, become more aware of the subtleties of your nervous system. So we work with your own nervous system before we even work with each other in the course. So I don't know, would you like to say anything about what was your experience of the course and what was helpful to you in the nervous system course that you did with me?
Yeah, definitely, Angela. What I found, the first and foremost, I would say, what I found the most helpful in that course is the way that you deliver it. Like, there's a lot that for me personally, what I understand, there's a lot about tone of voice, like facial expressions, just that warm, um, inviting social engagement that you provide. That was one of the main, that's one of the first things anyway, because feeling safe and feeling, whatever, calm and relaxed, that's the center of the ventral that allows you to really learn and be open and, have all this, to take it all in, I guess. Um, I'd also like to talk a little bit about how you embody what we're learning as well. The importance of, stopping, doing a practical exercise, um, that you can actually do and feel yourself what you're actually talking about. Because so many times you can, as you're probably aware too, that you can learn things and learn things and learn things and yeah, without embodying them. And it's the same as, it's the same as the KI work, it's exactly the same thing. But I think it's a good mixture of information that you give and also of exercises that give us that lived experience or that feeling, that experience of what does that feel like? What does it feel like when my nervous system shifts from calm and ventral to maybe sympathetic and or alert or a little bit scared or a little bit of fearful or wanting to run away or whatever it may be, and feeling what that feels like in a safe environment with the group that, like I said, you hold that space very well, and everyone holds that space, but you, just the nature of you is very, um, I found very soothing to be able to, and that to me has been one thing that stopped me from learning a lot of things in the past where I haven't felt safe learning something for whatever way it is, whether it's the person delivering it or whatever it may be. And it's all just, I can feel myself there, like I can feel myself in that moments just going into autopilot and it's all just words and stuff just hitting my face really. That's just for me personally. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I would highly recommend it, especially to, trainees or KI facilitators that, um, can relate to what we're saying right now about, that attunement that, um, is at a very deeper level, a very like minute level. Like you can see the slide, and it might be someone's just slightly like, like looking out or just floating away all of a sudden, just that dissociation. And you go, all right, so where's their nervous system at right now? And what can I use? What technique can I use in the KI work to bring this person back, whether it's grounding or like you do in your course, some of the exercises that we do to speed up your nervous system, to get you out of that shutdown, or to slow it down if you're quite sympathetically charged and you're coming in pretty hot.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's very I loved it and I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to
Great.
further their knowledge in this area. And it
Great.
made me a better facilitator as well.
Fantastic. That's great. Yeah, wonderful. I'd like to just say one more thing about this. It's hard to put into words, and I want to be able to articulate this because I feel like it is really crucial that it's this dance between that presence and that quote safety. And I'm using that word very carefully. It's not using the word safe in the sense of um, um, not wanting to go over edges. Like there's a phrase I'm trying to think of, like when people only want to be safe and they don't want to confront anything. It's not like that. That's not the way that I'm using the word safe here. Safe in the sense of very present, grounded, and empowered and ready. I like that word ready. Ready to to allow the triggering that happens in KI when we use those techniques that we use, the reverse inquiry and the utility inquiry and the mining, etc. It's that interesting dance between being grounded and present and then leaning into those edges that feel uncomfortable, that feel a little bit dysregulated in terms of our nervous system, but that we feel ready. And that's where transformation happens. But I think when we have the ability to be in that grounded, centered place, and we have that readiness to then lean out to those edges, I think that's when a lot of that, the effectiveness of those inquiry tools really comes into play. And so that's what I would really like to get across here in this little video. And that's my hope for learning and teaching about the nervous system is to make it be a support for doing deep inquiry.
I just want to say something that I just noticed there, Angela, is yeah, that really too is that titration and pendulation, but the viewing it from a nervous system level, as opposed to like a theoretical level, because when someone sort of using and observing their nervous system to pendulate and titrate, multiple things, and we do it anyway, like watching their body, their shoulders, how they're breathing, are their eyes, are they fixed or are they darting off, or, slight head movements and stuff like that. Usually if it's fixed and monotone, it's usually um, yeah. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, um, being what you just said, sort of following up from what you said as well, I find that being able to ground and then go out slowly into from a regulated place. I know we're not using regulated, whatever. From that place, actually go out to touch the edge, titrate or
Yeah.
pendulate, go a little bit deeper in, which we don't actually have the capacity to do if we're not in that grounded thing, which is,
Mm,
what natural rest shows us anyway.
yes.
Um,
Beautiful. I love that. I love that
yeah,
we're trying to find a way to talk about something that is actually really challenging to talk
yeah.
about. And thank you for bringing in pendulation and titration. I mean, those we are using those in Kiloby inquiries as well. And I think pendulation itself is a beautiful example. If you imagine that one end of the pendulum is being in natural rest, being very grounded and present, and then you swing your pendulum out into that triggered place that we do in KI facilitation, and then pendulating back. And part of what I love about pendulation is when the client, or when you, if you're working with your own work, inner work, when you get that sense of empowerment, like I can choose, I can be here in this part of my nervous system, and now I can lean out into that area that I wasn't willing or able to go. And now I have the choice. I can move back here and get more grounded again and integrate. Okay, now I'm ready for a deeper dive, So that's yeah, that's the exciting part for me in this work.
And as a facilitator too, like having that grounding within yourself, or what people call as a resource, whatever that may be for you, wherever you find that anchor, you always hold that anchor, and you just go and meet, we're going to meet them where they are, while we've still got our own foot in ventral. We're going out, maybe meeting them sympathetic a little bit, which means we might start talking a little bit faster, but we've still got our foundation in ventral, which allows us to meet them where they are, and then slowly, I don't want to say having intention is a good word, having an intention of just, or not even having an intention, sometimes just you having that one foot in ventral, they can, then they co-regulating with you, and then they sort of find their own path back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's just
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's
I love the
actually a
work.
very natural, it's actually a very natural thing, it's just bringing
Mm.
awareness to it, and then having a way of guiding ourselves with it.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important that with your course, you're embodying it as well. So it's not, because when you're in a session and someone's dysregulating, if you, I've found that if you're not sort of, if you don't have that resource within yourself, then you're not going to be able to have that resource for the other person. Intellect's
Yeah.
not going to help you in that moment, and you'll know, because you'll probably get dysregulated, or you might lose yourself or something like that. Well,
Mm.
sorry, I should talk in the first person I. That's been my experience, and as I've built that capacity to stay in ventral, because I can see it within myself first, then I can see it in my client. That's what I
Yeah,
find. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to share here in this. I will be including this video along with a post where I'll have more information about the dates for the next nervous system resilience course coming up next month. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me, and hopefully if you're interested, you'll come join the course. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining me here. It was great. And
Thanks
we'll
for
see,
inviting me on, Angela. I appreciate it.
yeah, see you later. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.